we're doing it.
Okay, this is the February 15th of 2022 City Council meeting, regular meeting. It's 6 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting to order, and let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Dumas.
Here.
Councilmember Elwood.
Here.
Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Pittman.
Here.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I declare a quorum. I have some comments about the agenda that was posted and distributed. Under minutes, we do have 3 sets of minutes to approve tonight. I didn't list them on the agenda, but Wes distributed them, so we have the regular meeting minutes from January 18th, workshop from January 13th, and the minutes from February 9th to approve. Then going down the agenda, we have Tina Cole on the agenda as the first item of new business, but because she has to drive back to Harrison tonight, I suggest that we move that item of new business up before old business and let her go first so that she can hit the road, unless you have some burning desire to hear the rest of our meeting.
I am at your disposal.
On the road paving grant, just as a note that I have resolution 2020-002 to present that's tied to that road paving project. And then going down the list, ordinance, I had the building code update listed as 2022-002. That's actually 003. I have the zoning ordinance listed as 003. That's actually 005. Got my numbering systems out of kilter when I was assigning the numbers. And then dropping down to the sheriff's contract, there is a resolution associated with that. It's 2022-003. So that'll come up as part of the business. So with those corrections or additions, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Linda made the motion, Lynn seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes of the regular meeting of January 18th.
Wasn't that seconded that?
Dumas.
We're gonna do them individually, or are we gonna?
Does anybody, of the 3 sets of minutes that were distributed, does anybody have any corrections or additions?
We already reviewed them and sent to corrections.
Okay, in which case I'll entertain a motion to approve all 3 sets.
Make a motion, we approve the 3 sets of minutes.
All right, Ken made the motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Lynn seconded it.
Ready to jump in.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. You need a second to catch up.
I'm okay.
All right,
I'm there.
going down to reports, Planning Commission.
The Holiday Island City Planning Commission has conducted 12 meetings since August 10th of 21. We adopted the planning area map in September 21st. We adopted the master street map on October 19th. And we had the first review of proposed zoning regulations back on November 9th. This commission has had 8 meetings to discuss, revise, and update those zoning regulations. And those are regulations for Title 14 anticipated for our municipal code. These public meetings have used over 19 hours of time in their public meeting time. The HICPC has made recommendations of over 60 pages of comprehensive text of a zoning map and a zoning map table for today's city council meeting. These regulations are not complete. Title 14 includes other topics that we'll be covering at a later date, like planned unit development, buffering for new developments, off-street parking, outdoor storage, commercial accessory uses, outdoor food vendors, signs, and flood damage prevention, and several other topics I didn't list. So there's a lot of work to do yet in Title 14. So tonight's just the first blush of getting it in place.
All right. Okay, thanks, Lynn. Anything on broadband?
No, not really. I hadn't talked to Rodney in the last couple of weeks, but I'll call him next week. But I do have an update on the ordinance that we passed to allow liquor by the drink. We do have a local restaurant that has filed for that permit.
Okay, that, the farmhouse?
Farmhouse. He didn't start off on a good foot, though. He forgot to include the check. So he has sent the check, so that it is under review.
That's practically the only thing that's important.
So Jerry Van Cleve, it is. But,
Okay, and I did, somebody brought up that, I don't remember who told me, but, somebody brought up that the Mexican restaurant would like to have a permit too, but they were waiting for the city to pass an ordinance. So, we need to get with those people.
Well, somebody in here talked to somebody up there and they were interested.
Yeah,
And I talked to the younger guy. I don't know what his role there is.
okay,
But yeah, at the time, they had their
They didn't have the
beer license had been pulled, so
yeah.
I'll go in there and talk to him and,
Yeah.
and
At least mention to them that, you know, that it's up to them if they want to apply for the license. Okay, anything, financials, Wes had published the financials for the, through January. Any questions or discussion on the financials?
Yeah, did we get a check from the county yet?
Not yet. We'll be talking about that. All right, I forget our.
I may make a motion, we accept the financials. We have to accept the
We just
financials.
accept them, I believe.
Make a motion, we accept the financials.
Okay,
I'll second.
Ken made a motion to accept the financials, and Linda seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Unless you want me to audit them, I don't know.
If you have nothing else to do, go ahead.
I did go ahead and post them on the website, though, they're out there.
All right,
I will say legislative audit, I have talked to legislative audit,
Again,
and they were wondering about what we had and everything, and they said, well, they'll do an audit, and there is no cost to the city if legislative audit does it. If we hire a CPA,
We
we
don't
will
need
pay
it.
the CPA.
we don't need a CPA.
And they were going to be planning their schedule, and they may or may not come this year. They may wait and come next year and do 2 years.
Oh, please come.
I hope they don't, schedule 2 days or something for our half a dozen numbers. Okay, thank you for the report there. Now we can move on to Tina.
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me be on your agenda. And I guess I should introduce myself. I am Tina Cole. I'm with the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District.
We are a member of that, right?
Yes, you are. Yep. You're a dues paying member. And what we do at the district is we have a program that helps folks that have been lost their jobs, like through the pandemic. We have different programs for workforce development, help folks write resumes, that kind of stuff. We have that division that does that. I work in the community development section of the organization, My official title is Community Development Coordinator, which is a fancy word for grant administrator. So, which I like grant administrator better because that's what I do. But we represent 9 counties and 72 cities. And in my position, I help the cities and counties write grants for projects for their cities.
Like what?
Historic preservation, parks, CDBG if you're eligible to have some communities. Some of our communities are, some of them aren't. And let's see, what other ones you... My main focus is federal mitigation grants, FEMA grants, with the hazard mitigation plans, hazard mitigation projects, just about all the federal. I just got awarded the Department of Justice grants. That one's a new one for me, but I was very excited. We got $550,000 for an addiction treatment program in the 14th Judicial Drug District, so I was excited. And but what I'm here for tonight is Carroll County applied for a grant to develop a hazard mitigation plan a couple years ago, and it is now complete. It has been approved by FEMA pending adoption, so that's what I'm here to ask you to adopt the resolution to adopt the plan.
Right.
And this is your copy. And what the plan does is it makes you eligible for additional federal funding. So if you have a mitigation project in your community that you'd like to do, we can apply for funding, and it's a 75-25, which means they pay 75%.
I hate to be ignorant, but what's mitigation?
Mitigation projects are like if you got a low water crossing that floods every time somebody flushes the toilet.
Okay.
A mitigation would be to take that low water crossing out and put in a bridge or a better low water crossing.
The real mitigation would be to fix your sewer line, but.
Well, I just read today that there's about $3 billion over the next 5 years going for mitigation projects.
So you're mitigating any problem?
Right.
Yes.
Try to
It's a fancy word for fixing
Well,
something.
we're trying to reduce the risk of damage and
Okay.
chance of life, loss of life.
Okay, so,
But they're more well known for like the community safe rooms at the schools. And in the community, we have small ones. And if you want passing those down, it kind of gives you an example of some mitigation projects we've
okay.
done. And some ideas for mitigation projects.
We've had a lot of earthquakes here lately, haven't we?
Yeah.
And what do you do, how do you fix those?
Well, it's not a whole lot of fix, but there's some things that you can do.
Get
like
Oklahoma to
inside-
quit fracking.
Yeah.
I think the strongest one's
Okay.
only been a 1.2 or something, though.
But that is those pictures are samples of some projects that we've done.
Okay, that's,
This, is this a brand new plan, or is this
This is a
an
brand new.
update of one that was, maybe?
This is a
old?
brand new one.
Okay.
Carroll
No.
County's never had.
I was curious as to whether or not the Suburban Improvement District had been involved in this planning before.
They were contacted when we submitted the application, and I believe they put in a letter of participation, that they
Right.
intended to participate.
Okay.
Yes.
Are many communities using sirens for tornado warnings?
Yes, ma'am. They're a royal pain in the keister to keep up.
This is my 199-page copy.
192 pages.
Every time we have a threat of a tornado, people out here always raise the question of why don't we have sirens? And we're spread over 7 square miles,
Yeah.
and hills and valleys.
Yeah.
So-
And those are designed for if you're outside to warn you to take cover. If you're inside, chances are you're not gonna hear them anyway unless you live like right underneath it.
I don't know, if you got a cell phone, you know it's coming.
Yeah.
That's-
That's
They
the-
send out warnings.
Yeah.
They're hard to maintain too, they're always
Yeah.
going out.
You have to test them at least weekly. Some places, if you test them in
Yeah,
in Mountain Home, they test them at noon every day, that siren goes off.
Many
But
of
that's
the
a maintenance issue. It's
smart
not-
people out here have suggested that it wouldn't benefit our community that much, so that's why I asked.
It doesn't hurt, but you gotta maintain.
but it always comes
So
up.
you got, yeah, the warning devices under tornadoes and everything.
Does HICID have they ever developed a plan, are there safe rooms or?
Yes.
There are?
There is, and I was gonna talk about that when we got to the resolution part, that HICID does have an emergency response plan. And they do have certain facilities designated as, you know, safe zones, I guess.
I guess that's a safe room,
Yes.
They have backup generators on all the key, infrastructure and stuff like that.
We're basically talking shelters if it's not feasible for people to stay in their home.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be fire, it could be tornado, it could be ice storm.
I think we're pretty, fairly vulnerable because, like in Oklahoma, you can build a shelter in your yard. Here you have to like hire a dynamite crew.
We don't allow blasting.
And there are very few basements really, that
Oh, yeah.
underground basement.
I got one.
I don't know how many of you, are you ready for us to jump in?
I'm here for questions and
Okay.
conversation, whatever you want.
I don't know how many of you have actually read the 192 pages. You don't have to read all of it because a lot of it is tables and appendices that don't necessarily even apply to us because it covers the whole state or whatever. But I didn't see anything in there that we would have, or that I would have an issue with. It doesn't bind us to doing anything right now financially, which was my main concern with approving a resolution is, we couldn't commit to something that we didn't have funded. So,
Here goes our
or just
one.
blew open.
Faulty work.
Where's Carl when you need him?
Lynn fixed it last week.
You have to
It
slam
doesn't
it.
cost anything to.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Hey, and another light came on.
Oh, there you go.
We don't need-
All right.
Dan, there is a section at the end about a long-range plan of action items that we should take, and it looked like a lot of work, but it seems to me it said like 6 years.
And it also said that you didn't have to implement anything until, you had once you come up with a plan, you have a year to implement it once funding is available.
Okay.
So it does have that stipulation in there. The reason why I like this plan is because this has been on my to-do list even back when I was on the Board of Commissioners. We had kind of a skeleton emergency response plan here, but not nearly as detailed as I would have liked to see. I'm not sure we would know what to do if we had if the fuel truck sprung a leak up at the gas station. Would we know how to evacuate the area? Would we know who to call to clean it up and stuff like that? Maybe Chris Lettinger, the fire chief, he may have a lot of that stuff on the bookshelf somewhere, but it's not in the general public's hand. And, I've been involved in the community government here as probably anybody other than maybe Linda and Ken over the years. And I haven't seen a document that has hazard mitigation or emergency response in one comprehensive document. Even who's gonna do the communicating with the public if there is a natural disaster of some sort.
And if funding does not come available for you to do those projects, it does not hurt your eligibility, it doesn't hurt the plan. It's just when we do an annual update or our 5-year update, then we can take some of those projects off if it's not feasible for you. Or we can add some on, it's at the city's discretion to.
Will you give us some kind of notice that we need to be looking at this document and
Yes.
send you information in the future? Okay.
I typically just pick up the phone and talk to the mayor and say, hey,
Okay.
has anything changed, or is there anything you'd like to add, or?
I think our biggest,
But if he'd like for me to come and visit with you folks here at city council, I can definitely do.
I think our biggest risks here, are flooding, landslides, and, fire. Because virtually every house in Holiday Island backs up to a wooded area that is just loaded up with fuel from leaves and down trees and branches and everything else. And, you know, we're not gonna get out there with rakes and rake the woods, but, and most of the backyards go, you know, down at a 60-degree slope. So you can't get a fire truck in there, you can't get a bulldozer in there. And, you know, I see that if we get into a drought period where that really dries up, we could have some problems. Landslides, we've already had one that we had to get FEMA money to restore a road that was.
We've actually had two.
Two, yeah.
State line and Hop.
Right. One, the landslide took the road out. The other one, the landslide ended up on top of the road, and we had to mitigate and stabilize soil and stuff like that. Flooding, actual flooding, not so much. You know, if anything ever happened to Beaver Dam, it would probably be good to know how many of us would be underwater. Although your plan here says that the biggest risk is 60 miles downstream. If the dam were to breach.
When it starts slowing down.
Yeah, when it hits Branson.
Starts pulling up.
Yeah.
You know, it's the dam at Branson, that might be.
But I'm sure, I'm sure. I mean, the chances of it happening, I think in the table here said it's like less than 2% or something. But if it did ever happen, I'm sure that there are some low-lying areas along Haddock Creek and stuff like that that would be in serious trouble.
Well, there's a lot of property on the island, on the lower part of the island.
Yeah, we could-
Lakeside.
Yeah.
So it would be good.
Water.
It would be good for us to know, excuse me, what the elevation, you know, what's the safe elevation for Holiday Island if the dam were to breach, and then have a mitigation plan or something for anything
Y'all
that's lower than that elevation.
can come up to the top of Rocky Top, you'd be okay.
And what we can do is we can have the Corps of Engineers come and talk to us and tell us where
Yeah.
all those spots are, and they got maps. And
Yeah,
they've done all this measurement. It's their responsibility.
Beaver would be in pretty big trouble,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so.
A question, you were talking about fire risk, which I've always agreed with you on that. I mean, I think that's our number one risk really too, always has been. And, but you mentioned wildfires, here's your last item. And you mentioned the FireWise program. I don't know specifically, but I thought all of our FireWise money had been more or less cut off.
I think the grants are very, very small.
Or they're rare or something.
Well, and it's
So,
more of a
tell us
program
about
of
that.
community involvement to get folks signed up to do the program and teach you how to fireproof your home and property, at least to get it away from the house.
Well, we used to have the fire department would come to your house and give you an assessment. And
Yeah,
then-
that was.
Then they would also, they had the chipping program going on, that the fire
And
department
that's how they got the
did.
chipper, and
Right.
I think
But now
that,
the chipper is HICID, so it's operated by the road
War
department.
department.
I just,
And
I haven't heard anything about FireWise for probably
Exactly.
10, 15 years. I
It's
don't
like,
think.
it's non-existent now, where it used
Well,
to be very.
Firewise, Firewise probably has two different definitions. There's Firewise as a program, and then there's Firewise as grants.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
the district used to get like $10,000 a year through Firewise, as a grant, and that's what they ran the chipping program.
But to do
with.
stuff with, to actually be able to offer services that would,
But those grants, I
mitigate
think, are now
problems.
hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars.
so is money available?
I honestly don't know yet. This new infrastructure bill has got a ton of money out there for,
Yeah, they got
Projects
piles
like
of it, they
this.
can't figure out what to do with it.
yeah, I got a list of where the money's going. I found it today.
We found
But,
out we didn't qualify for most
But
of it.
wildfire remediation is a part of
Okay,
it.
we need
So it will be coming down, but
Well, keep us in
Is
mind
Is that,
if you learn.
is that all
anything.
in that document?
Got that.
the 476, yeah. The guidebook I see is
So
476.
you tell me I gotta read it, huh?
Yeah, no.
So are you, getting some of this government money, for projects?
We don't get, we apply for money.
Oh,
From
you
these
apply
folks
for
that
it?
have the money.
Just, but through government programs that make it available? Federal government programs?
From what I can tell, a lot of those funds are just being put into programs that are already in place. They're just increasing the amounts that they usually get. On some of it. Some of it is only programs, some of it's just standalone money for certain things.
Because I don't know if you talked to Dan, but we missed the boat on getting any money as a city, so. Because
Yeah, we don't
weren't
get
a
any
city
form of
early
money.
enough.
We don't get any of the American Rescue
Zero.
Plan Act money because the way the legislation was written, how much you get is based on your 2019 actual spending or your 2020 budget. And we weren't a city until December of 2020. So since we had no budget and no actual spending, we are not eligible. We've been told that by everybody at the state.
I don't see Mike, 'cause it's based on population.
I sat in on a CDBG workshop a couple of months ago, and based on the criteria for that, it's if you were, we would be eligible for any of that money because to my understanding, we've got to be 51% low and moderate income, which we're far above that. There is a factor of having a certain percentage of senior citizens, but we probably would meet that. But
Probably. Average age is
Let
68.
let me clarify what I was saying. The way the legislation was written, the amount of money that you get can't exceed 75% of your budget or your actual spending. And that's, that was, and because they couldn't determine what our cap would be, they made us
We have-
ineligible.
Had no budget, so it
75%
was
is
zero.
0.
There was one city, we were the only city in Arkansas that didn't qualify, and then there was one city in Arkansas that turned the money down.
Oh, we had several.
Oh,
We had a couple, just didn't want to fool with it.
yeah?
They could send it to us.
Well, and then
Right.
we got little communities like Everton, they got, I don't even remember exactly, but, like less than $30,000, and they're like, we had no real impact from COVID. We brought some hand sanitizer and cleaning wipes for the community center, but we don't know what to do with this.
I think Beaver got 20,000-ish essentially.
Yeah, I think.
But they,
Eureka Springs got, 400 and some thousand.
But they just completed the final rule, and actually we're going down Friday to get to a workshop on some of the things that they're clarifying in the final rule. So I may have more information Friday.
Yeah.
If they.
Well, if they end up with any that they can't otherwise give away, let us know.
We'll just
We got-
sneak in
we-
the back door and get it
We
from
got a big,
somewhere
And
else.
we
got a
did.
big cup. Got a big tin cup.
We did, we are doing one kind of backdoor thing, and that's that, the state did a survey, a sewer and water infrastructure need survey, and, we did participate in that. And, we said we need $7 million, and, we're still Word is, there's still a potential that we could get something, but,
Well, and I
no
think,
actual
like I
word
said,
on
as
it.
they get the infrastructure bill worked out, I'm
Yeah.
guessing it won't be this year.
yeah, the infrastructure bill is different from
Yes,
the
it's two different.
original, Rescue Plan Act.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I just found that page that I was looking for where it says the evaluation and update to begin approximately 3 to 5 years after approval. So, you're right, we don't have any immediate
We don't
commitments
have
for
to do it
cash.
immediately, but
Right.
it was on my to-do list anyway, that's why I don't have any problems at all with you guys passing the resolution. So if we're ready for that, I will, I will ask Wes to read the resolution.
Resolution 2022-001, a resolution to adopt the Carroll County, Arkansas Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Whereas all areas within Carroll County are subject to various hazardous events, natural and man-caused, with the potential to cause loss of life and property damage, and whereas under the Disaster Mitigation Plan of 2000, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, required that local jurisdiction have a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan in place as a condition to apply for future federal mitigation funding. And whereas Carroll County and its jurisdictions, with the assistance of the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District, NWAEDDO, have researched and developed the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan attached here too. And whereas by participating in the hazard mitigation plan, Carroll County and its jurisdictions are eligible to apply for post-disaster mitigation funds. And whereas the director of the Office of Emergency Management, or his or her designee, is appointed to assure the hazard mitigation plan is reviewed at least annually and completes a mandated review every 5 years to be submitted to the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management, ADEM, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for review and updates. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas, that the City of Holiday Island hereby adopts these portions of the Carroll County Hazard Mitigation Plan relating to and protecting its jurisdictional areas against all hazards as developed in the Hazard Mitigation Plan for the purpose of building a safer community by reducing vulnerability to such events.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Jerry made a motion to approve resolution 2022-001. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn made the second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman.
Aye.
All in favor, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, the resolution passes. I suppose you would like to take a copy back with you?
If I can, would be great.
You, by any chance, have your stamp with you?
No.
Yeah, you
It's
don't
all right.
need to stamp it, just
Okay.
sign a copy and we'll give it to her, and then we'll run another copy to sign for our
Okay.
records. Thank you for coming over.
Anytime.
Now we have your name and know that you're tied to grant applications.
That's what we do.
You can expect, do you have, by any chance, have a business card?
There's one inside the binder and I've got some more.
Okay, all right. Then we'll have you on speed dial.
You bet. I love it. I got some cards.
I don't know, I'm looking at the resolution for the sheriff contract.
Go ahead.
It's also 20-001.
It's an ordinance, so.
Now,
No, it's a resolution.
Oh, it is?
there were, I had to make some corrections on them.
So later, that one's 03 now.
Here's a couple more cards.
Yeah.
And here's your copy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to attend your meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And anytime you want us to come visit, just let us know. We like to come and
Okay.
give you our spiel.
We'll do it when it's daylight.
Okay, then moving back to old business, road paving project.
Did you want, we haven't done the minutes yet, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Wait,
can.
wait, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all got the letter the memo that I.
Yes, I did.
When did
You
that
can
come
check
out?
your email this afternoon.
I guess not.
Just a little bit, about 3 o'clock.
Well, then I'll just explain it to you. I sent the memo out just so that you'd have some advance warning. But, we are still having problems with the, county relative to getting our, road tax money. Not so much for this year, but for last year. I suppose because there's turnover in personnel at the county, there's, you know, it's almost like we got the clock reset. And now the newly appointed collector, doesn't know what to do, can't get anybody to tell her what to do. Based on the resolution or the ordinance that the county, quorum court passed, she has us in the system to start receiving our share of the property tax or the road tax money in March. So but that, whatever they collect in March gets distributed in April. So we should see money on April, in April, and that's straight from the horse's mouth, basically. The
Is that
collection.
just for the month of March?
That's for whatever they collect in March.
What about
She
January?
didn't say anything about
We really
February,
want
January,
the
or
back
February. And when Wes asked her about last year, she
2021.
said, well, the books are closed for last year, so I don't know what to do. And quite frankly, I've been saying this for 6 months, that the county, or now, 8 or 9 months, that the county was spending our money every month because they weren't sending it to us, and they weren't putting it in the bank. So, and the tax collector, to my knowledge, has no reserves that she can dip into. So it's going to be up to the treasurer and the county judge and the quorum court again to give the collector instruction as to where that, how much and where that money is going to come from.
And I can imagine that bookkeeping wise, she probably doesn't know how to record it in whatever financial system they have.
No.
I don't know.
Is that what it would be?
Why are we any different than
She's
the other
the res-
city? How they been doing it?
The collector is the one that figures out how much we should get.
I mean,
Tells the treasurer.
Mhm.
they've been doing that for every city in the county forever.
It's
And we're no
Going
different.
forward, I don't think there's gonna be a problem. It's getting the money for last year.
Which
Well,
is
the county's got a reserve.
Well, and that's why I said it's gonna,
Well-
the collector has no authority to dip into the county reserves. That, at any rate, Jack's back involved again.
Yeah, they need
And,
more, they need a ordinance passed for quorum court.
He said he was gonna get everybody in one room together at one time, and they were gonna hammer it out, because we were back to the old, I can't, you know, I sent somebody an email and they didn't respond, and I've called somebody and they won't respond, and, you know, it's like they live in different states or something, they can't, you know, I guess they can't talk to each other over there. So Jack was gonna get everybody together in one room, and they were gonna hammer it out, but I'm assuming that it's going to take another ordinance from the county. Consequently, we have, you know, we have the invoice for $307,000 for our portion of the paving program, you know, through the grant. And at this point, you know, Wes and I were trying to figure out how we can manage this if we don't get that money from the county, because we, you know, originally we were planning on spending $250,000. Then when the actual bids came in, it jumped up to $607,000 for the project. And then, you know, we figured, well, if we get that money from the county, then we'll still be okay. You know, with a transfer from the reserve fund, we can still cover it. But now we can't count on the money from the county in time to make the payment to the state that they need from us in order to release the contractors. I talked to RDOT this morning, and they said that if we would send them $250,000, like as soon as possible, then they would release the contractor to do $550,000 worth of work, whatever that ends up being. And then when we send them the balance of the money, the other, what is it, 37,000 or whatever, then they would do a change order for the contractor to release them for the balance of the money.
They kind of changed the stories. I thought they said if we sent them 200, the original stuff said that if we gave them 200, we could get the rest of it later on. What happened to that story?
I don't know.
I don't think that was a story.
I don't think that ever was a story.
I thought they
Yeah, it was.
wouldn't do anything unless we came up with all the.
That was
Yeah.
what he reported the last meeting. That we had.
Well, that's-
We've always had to come up with $307,000
Mhm.
ever since the actual bids came back.
Well, let me go back and find it, but I thought there was one thing he sent us that said that we had it forgiven, so that if we come up with 200 or 250.
They've always been willing to start the project with a partial payment.
Right.
They've never been willing to complete the project without all the money.
That's what he said when it said good news and bad news.
Well, I know,
No,
but
they were approved.
they're not gonna start the project until probably June.
But at any rate, they're not changing their story. I'm just confirming what, you know, what they originally had told
Well,
me.
if they don't start till June, wouldn't we be able to provide the rest of the money by the time they got to
Yes.
the point they needed?
Yes, and that, there's a lot of, you know, there's still unknowns going forward. We have no idea when the contractor is gonna come up here, and the state doesn't know. It's, you know, once they release the contractor, then they'll put us in the schedule and advise everybody what's going on. It may be that none of this is necessary. If they don't start our job till October, then we'll probably have
It's too
enough
late to
money
do
in
it,
the,
it's too late to
you
do
know, in
road
the
work
account
here.
to cover it. However, I personally can't commit to, you know, to doing a bunch of transfers out of different accounts. You know, I wanna be able to cover the project. You know, I need to know that I have the project covered with your approval before I send them any money and let them release the contractor. Because, you know, it's illegal for me to commit to something we don't have the money for. So, if we take $70,000 right now out of the, given what we have in the road fund right now, if we take 70,000 out of the general fund reserve and 20,000 out of just the general fund and make a loan basically to the road fund, like right now, if we approve that tonight, then by the end of April, we would have enough money, or by the time we get our April distribution, we would have enough money in the bank to cover the whole project. And so that's what I'm asking for tonight in a resolution that we'll read here in a second. There's one other caveat. There's a sentence in the invoice that we got that said something to the effect that be advised that the city is responsible for all costs incurred in the project due to materials. In other words, the contractor can, if the contractor overspends the bid, we are on the hook for whatever he overspends. So I asked Jonathan, I said, what are they allowed? Is there like a 10% overage allowance in the bid or something? And he said there is no overage allowed in the bid. If they can't complete the project for the amount that was bid, then they have to come back to us and ask for more money. And we have an opportunity to approve, more money, or, negotiate some other outcome, either, holding their feet to the fire and saying, we don't think your reasons for overrunning your bid are legitimate, or we can, scale back the project to make up the difference or something like that. But under no circumstances can they overrun the bid, send us a bill and expect us to pay it.
Right.
That's the important part.
They'd have to come back with a change order, and we would have to approve it.
Right. So,
I mean, I thought
Can
that's
you
why we
pencil
take a bid.
the line through that sentence? So it's not even in the contract? Just pencil out that line and put your initials on it when you sign it?
it's not a contract, it's an invoice.
Oh, okay, all right,
The contract, the state manages the whole thing.
okay.
All we do is send them money. And, but we have an opportunity to approve or disapprove any overages. So with that, I would like to have this resolution considered. So I will have Wes read the resolution.
Resolution number 2022-002. A resolution allowing for temporary transfers from the general fund and the general fund reserve to the street fund for the city of Holiday Island. Whereas the city of Holiday Island budgeted for a $550,000 street paving project, of which $300,000 is to be paid through the state aid street program, and whereas the actual low bid is $607,721.82. And whereas the city had anticipated receiving the city share of the Carroll County 3 mil property tax for roads, and whereas it is undetermined at this point when the city will receive these funds, and whereas RDOT is willing to do the project in 2 steps, allowing for an initial payment of $250,000 with the balance due in April. Now be it resolved by the City Council of Holiday Island that the City Council for the City of Holiday Island approves the temporary transfer of $70,000 from the general fund reserve and a temporary transfer of $20,000 from the general fund, both to the street fund in order to complete a road paving project. The funds are to be transferred back into the respective funds from the street fund prior to year end. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this date of February 15, 2022.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution, and after receiving a second, I'll open it for discussion.
Make a motion, we approve, resolution 2022-002.
Ken Mills made the motion to approve the resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Pat seconded it. Any discussion?
So when we start receiving the county money for the property tax for roads, we get, what, about 20,000 a month?
No.
We don't really know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
A good share of the funds will come in from property taxes later in the year.
Okay. Yeah, it's based on what's collected that
It's
month.
based on whatever they collect.
Okay,
And we, you know, we budgeted 50, or we were anticipating 51 or 52,000 in the cash flow for this,
for
you know,
this
for
year.
this project.
Well,
For
this-
last year, and then an equal amount for this year.
Okay,
So,
so we
But-
will get
the,
at least this year's portion,
yes,
which could be used to replenish
yeah,
the funds. right?
yeah.
Uh,
Even if we don't get the money for last year, we'll have enough money in the street fund
Well,
by the end of the year
That's
to
what I was
replenish
thinking.
these two.
Mhm.
if we don't get it, we're still.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
If they don't come back, if Jack doesn't come back with something pretty definite, I'm gonna tell Justin to file the lawsuit.
The hell with them.
And
I mean, they'll drag this out forever.
They've
been
danced
going
us
on
around
since
for a
last
year
summer.
already.
You what?
It's been going on since last
Yeah.
summer. It's
Yeah.
not that.
No, it's been going on since last March.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on the resolution? All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman.
Aye.
All in favor?
Okay, the resolution passed, so we have a plan for the road project. I have a copy of the reading. You sign that. Those two. And then we can move on to the next item. All right. Lost my agenda.
This is 2022-002 or 3?
Two. The road paving was two.
This is Title 14, right?
No. No. We just did the road paving grant. The next thing on the agenda is ordinance number 2022-003,
3?
building code updates. Now, the number may not match what was distributed, because like I said, I was getting these numbers straightened out kind of
Is
late
this
in the
building
day.
code or?
He had to redo the numbers.
I never did get a copy of that.
The building code updates were distributed at least a week ago.
It's on the website, Ken.
Okay.
Okay, I would ask Wes again to read, we're gonna read the, okay. The next thing on the agenda is ordinance number 2022-003, an ordinance modifying the building code for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. Because the updates to the building code are rather lengthy, we will just read the ordinance. We won't read all of the updates to the building code. They will be posted.
Ordinance number 2022-003. An ordinance modifying the building code for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Holiday Island passed ordinance 2021-17 establishing a building code for the city, and whereas the building code from time to time will be modified and updated to correct errors and add new information, and whereas additional language is required to the code to address drainage in manufactured homes, now be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Holiday, Arkansas, that the attached corrections and additions be made to the City of Holiday Island Building Code. And since current and pending projects may be impacted by these additions to the code, an emergency is declared to exist. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this date of 2/15/2022.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-003?
So moved.
Lynn Dumas made the motion to approve the ordinance. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Linda, keep wanting to say Lynn. Linda seconded it. Is there any discussion? I can just kind of add some comments here. There were several typos and stuff like that I found while I was going through it. I've corrected those. There were a couple of minor updates to tables and things like that. The real important thing that changed in this update is adding a section on driveways, culverts, and drainage to make sure that we consider, when we're issuing building permits and stuff like that, that we adequately consider drainage relative to that construction, and then a section on manufactured homes to say, again, kind of restate that they need to be inspected.
Yeah, I reviewed all those changes that you made there, but I thought we couldn't use the emergency clause on this because it had to be read 33 times.
The updates themselves don't have anything to do with fines and penalties, so I think the original, actually even the original building code, I think we passed in one reading, because we were under the gun to start issuing building permits.
Okay,
I think that's.
okay, I'm thinking of the other one,
Yeah,
see the sanitation thing.
yeah, the health and
Okay, this is-
sanitation and the
okay.
zoning one,
Okay,
we're
this
gonna
is,
have to do in 3 readings, because there's fines and penalties.
okay, this
Can I
is,
just see if
associated
you
with that.
caught a couple of what I think are typos?
No. Can save that for the next ordinance. What,
Well,
on what
on
page?
page 4, where you have the avenue in red, it looks like you've got a dash through the E of drive
Yeah,
too.
I took that out in the
Okay.
final, in the final version that'll be posted on the website. I changed all the red to black, and I saw that too, and I took that little line out.
And more substantive is page 7, where you have the process,
Page 7, yeah,
and you added utility took out municipal and added utility services.
right.
Originally, that phrase said zoning or municipal service issues. And I think that word issues at the end of that is an important thing to include, because you're not asking the question, are there zoning or municipal services? You're asking if there are issues about those services or issues about the zoning. That's the test.
You.
The box
may
is
be-
a test for yes or
You
no.
may be right, but I thought I took this right off of,
Well, I was just
website.
looking at the one that's on the website
Yeah.
to make sure what it said, and it did have the word issues
okay,
in that, which will make it make more sense.
all right. I know we wanted to take out municipal because
Right.
they're not necessarily municipal zoning or municipal.
It's on there, Linda. My pull down didn't show it. The box wasn't big
Oh,
enough.
it didn't show it on.
Yeah, your box isn't large enough,
Ah,
Dan.
that's the deal.
The
When
text
you
is
print
still
it out,
there.
It doesn't show.
The box needs to be stretched vertically or stretched horizontally. So it's
I got
forward.
Okay.
It's
well,
there.
good.
All right,
That's why
I
you thought
will-
it was there.
I will
Yep.
make that correction before we post it.
Okay.
And it's, on my version of the software, the boxes are disjointed, so be sure to look at your PDF to make sure they're still connected.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I had to do some finagling on
okay.
that. All right, anything else?
Fine.
Okay. Then we can move to the roll call vote, and then we'll need
Okay.
another motion on
Um,
the emergency clause.
yeah, and do we need to suspend reading of the,
Not with the emergency clause,
okay,
it automatically goes into effect with the emergency clause.
okay, okay. Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Owen,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman. All in favor?
Okay, so the ordinance passes, and since there's an emergency clause, I'll need a motion to approve the emergency, declaring the emergency.
I move we approve declaring an emergency for this ordinance.
Linda made a motion to approve declaring the emergency. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn seconded it. Any discussion? I guess we roll call vote that too.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman.
Aye.
All in favor?
Okay. You got the other copy?
I think I gave that back to you.
Did you?
You
Did I
handed
only
me
have one
one,
copy of that?
you handed me one, and I gave it to you.
Did anybody see him give it back to me?
Now, kids,
Because I thought I ran 2 copies of this, but maybe I didn't. All right, I'll have to get another copy for the file.
I may have one that I printed.
We can run another copy.
Yeah, I thought we were done with that. Did we?
Okay, now we move on to the zoning ordinance. I ran copies when I had the numbers on them,
Okay,
the ordinance numbers.
that's fine.
All right, moving on, the next thing on the agenda is ordinance 2022-005, an ordinance adopting Title 14 zoning, in order to clarify zoning regulations, establishing fees and penalties for violation thereof, and for other purposes for the city of Holiday Island. And since this is 60-some pages, we will again just read the ordinance and not the entire zoning regulation.
Ordinance 2022-005. An ordinance adopting Title 14 zoning in order to clarify zoning regulations, establishing fees and penalties for violation thereof, and for other purposes for the city of Holiday Island. Whereas pursuant to ACA 1456-416, the Holiday Island City Planning Commission, the HICPC, has determined it necessary to develop zoning regulations for the entire area of Holiday Island to provide districts of compatible uses for unified developments, for the elimination of nonconformance, and for other matters of general welfare of the city. And whereas the City Council adopted ordinance 2022-002 establishing the Holiday Island Board of Adjustment on January 18th, 2022, that is pursuant to ACA 1456-416B1 and following. And whereas the City Council of Holiday Island now finds it to be in the best interest of the citizens of Holiday Island to adopt Title 14 zoning regulation in its entirety, including the zoning map and zoning map table and specific text from ordinance 2022-002 to better provide for the clarification of terms and uses for zoning. And whereas it is the desire of the City Council that said Title 14 zoning be formally adopted by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas, as follows. Section 1, Title 14 created. Title 14 zoning regulation is hereby created, including the zoning map and zoning map table appended in its entirety to the Holiday Island Municipal Code and attached hereto. Section 2, repeal ordinance 2022-002. Ordinance 2022-002 establishing the Holiday Island Board of Adjustment is hereby repealed and replaced in its entirety as incorporated into Title 14 zoning, Chapter 1426, Board of Adjustment. Section 3, organization. The city recorder treasurer shall maintain 2 signed copies of this ordinance and a digital image for public inspection. Severability. In the event that any section, paragraph, subdivision, clause, phrase, definition, fee, fine, or other provisions or portion of this ordinance or Title 14 zoning shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity of this ordinance or Title 14 zoning as a whole, or in any part or provision other than the part so decided to be invalid or unconstitutional, and the remaining provisions of the ordinance of Title 14 zoning shall be construed as if such invalid, unenforceable, or unconstitutional provision or provisions had never been contained therein. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this 15th day of February 2022.
Okay, he did give the copy back to me.
Okay.
All right, I would entertain a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance 2022-005.
So moved.
Second.
Lynn made a motion to approve ordinance 2022-005.
First reading.
First reading. Jerry made the second. Is there any discussion?
I want to hear Wes read some of this table.
Yeah, no.
How long is that table? Oh,
The table is 5,232 lines.
okay, no.
Jerry's gonna read it.
No, Linda is.
Ditto.
By the next meeting, he'll have it committed to memory.
Good luck on that.
All right, back to the business here. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman.
Aye.
All in favor, Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Then it passes on the first reading, and we will put this on the agenda again for the next meeting. So, hang on to that for now. All right, next thing on the agenda is ordinance 2022-004. I'm not going to present an ordinance tonight on the health and sanitation ordinance. We can discuss it if anybody feels a need to, but I sent a copy of it to our city attorney, Justin, to review. He said that he had just recently done a complete Title 11, or whatever this title
Title
is.
5, I think.
Title 5, for another city. And he said there was a lot of things fresh in his mind about it, so the timing was good for him to look at ours. So rather than doing a first reading on an ordinance and then, you know, ending up with maybe a major rewrite to, to our proposed health and sanitation ordinance, I'm going to put this off until I get feedback from Justin. We can call a special meeting at any time to consider the ordinance, to get the clock ticking, once I get that rewrite. But I think it would be a little premature right at this point to try to deal with an ordinance. And there's some other issues we need to address too, like not pertaining directly to the ordinance, but kind of getting our ducks in a row as to what's going to happen the next day after we pass the ordinance. We have to notify the customers, we have to notify the current haulers. We have to negotiate a fee structure and everything with Carroll County. So it's probably good to take a deep breath and do a little more homework before we pass the ordinance.
But it's still gonna be a 90-day process
Yeah,
True.
to get the ordinance.
I thought that's why we were going, do a first reading and.
Yeah, it's the potential for a major rewrite that made me put it off, And like I said, we can call a special meeting the day after I get the rewrite back from, or the review back from the attorney. So we're not putting this off indefinitely. And I think the good news is that in the meantime, some things are being handled with problem properties. So, anybody have any other discussion on?
I do.
Okay.
I thought the way we left it, was it last week? I can't remember when we were talking about
We had a
this,
work
when we
session,
talked
yeah.
about it. At a work session, yes. I thought the way we left it was that we weren't going to allow trash burning.
Trash burning? We're not.
Or yard
allowing
waste
trash.
burning.
Yes,
That's
yes, good you brought that up.
I read that and I like
When
what you
I,
did.
we talked at length about, in the workshop,
Mhm.
about, banning burning, open burning, period, is the
I mean, we were
The
just
best
talking
one.
about lot fires.
the best and safest thing to do. However, we also talked about the fact that we're not really giving people an alternative.
Right.
So, that almost makes the ordinance unenforceable. So, ordinances are subject to change at any point in the future. What I decided to do was to write the ordinance at this point to basically allow what kind of the rules have been in the past. That you can,
A little
can-
stricter, you put a little more.
a little stricter,
Yeah.
but still, you can still burn your leaves in your ditch as long as you
Oh.
call.
You said incinerator,
No.
No,
that's what
there's
it
a
said.
section in there that
There's a
says you can
section.
burn
I don't know how
yard
to
waste
ditch.
if you call the fire department and let them know what you're doing.
It had to be certain distance too from any structure.
25 feet.
25 feet. I had a little question, I don't have it pulled up now, but, and correct me if I misread it. But we're not asking for a permit for the fire,
Just
Chris,
permission.
just permission. When you
Same
call
thing
him,
you
is
do
he
now.
gonna keep, do we need to put in there that he needs to keep a log or something?
They keep a log,
They do?
fire department.
Every time you call, because I wouldn't wanna, something come up, and say, well, I called the fire department, well, they got no record of it.
And that was another thing that it's on my list of things to do. We referred a lot to the fire department in that section of the code. And, I haven't sat down and talked to the fire chief about this to get his input and opinion on it. But, I tried
The
to,
way I read it, it still requires an incinerator.
Except as provided in section 5-8, 10 or something.
Section D says you have to use an
And-
incinerator.
No, he
It
changed it.
doesn't qualify it for just
He
legal.
changed, he changed it, because I read the change.
I read the change and I gotta
Ah.
find it.
No, I don't have a change.
I couldn't support the one that said, because there's a lot of people like me that have a lot of yard waste, tree trimming and stuff, and you can't haul it off anymore.
Well, I would prefer it be hauled off if there was a way to haul it off.
Well, there isn't.
well, I talked to Danny today, about whether or not we could set up a collection area in the depot up there where people could dump their yard waste, so that you could at least call somebody and have them clean up your yard and haul it out there and dump it. And then, we mulch it and like Eureka Springs mixes their sludge from their sewage treatment plant in with their, chippings and stuff like that. And then, sells it or lets people have it for mulch. So they don't have to pay somebody to haul their
Sludge.
their sludge to Town. And so, Danny and I both agree that there's some potential there. We'd have to see what it costs to dispose of the sludge. Would be an offset to the cost of managing a dump site here. So there's some long-term potential there to be able to give people an alternative. But in the meantime, I thought we had to allow burning of yard waste. And I don't
Well,
know.
I just look at, on page 7, paragraph D versus the first paragraph of 50811. And
I didn't even run myself a copy of the latest version.
No.
I didn't,
I read it.
I didn't,
It was okay.
I didn't plan on really taking it up, but I can look at that,
Okay.
Send me something where you have a question
Okay.
and I'll see if I can clarify it. Because I didn't intend to imply that you had to have an incinerator.
Well, I and I agree, we have to have some way of
Yeah.
handling it.
Okay.
But an incinerator is certainly a lot safer than burning in your yard or whatever.
But,
Hey,
And,
how you get,
an ADEQ approved incinerator, that's not something a homeowner is gonna buy. That's, typically behind the grocery stores where they burn their cardboard boxes and stuff.
Gosh darn it.
Okay,
Oh, what are we gonna do next with this then? Are
we're
we
gonna
gonna,
wait
Wait
for
for Justin.
Justin
Justin,
to
okay,
send me his version of it.
so does that put us into next month?
I don't know how long it'll take him.
Probably does.
I did tell him to put a priority on this over the zoning one, because I feel more confident that the zoning one isn't gonna come back, like he, cut his wrists over it. Full of red markups.
like sheriff contract?
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, then we'll move on to the sheriff's contract. Actually, we shouldn't call it a contract. It's-
Interlocal agreement.
It's an interlocal agreement. Did everybody get a chance to
Yeah, I
read that? I guess we should read the resolution first, and then I'll open it for discussion. So, Wes, I did want to make one follow-up comment on the ordinance, on the zoning ordinance. I asked Wes to read it. I should have asked Lynn to read it, because Lynn did all the work. You know, it's kind of like, you know, a woman having a baby and then giving the baby to somebody else to have all the pictures taken.
It's okay.
I didn't hear Landon.
I don't know if that's a good comparison.
But at any rate, Wes, would you read
Okay.
the resolution?
Resolution 2022-003. The City of Holiday Island, Carroll County, Arkansas. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Carroll County and the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District, HISD, for law enforcement services and to take all other measures necessary. Whereas the City Council of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas believes that it is in the best interest of the citizens of Holiday Island to enter into an agreement for law enforcement services in the form or any form substantially similar to the attached agreement for law enforcement services, the agreement. And whereas pursuant to authority authorized in the Interlocal Cooperation Act, the parties to the agreement have set forth their respective duties, obligations, and responsibilities with respect to law enforcement services. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island as follows. Section 1, that the agreement between the City of Holiday Island, Carroll County, and HISD is hereby ratified and approved as in form or substantially similar to the form as attached hereto as Exhibit A. Section 2. The mayor and the city recorder treasurer are hereby authorized and directed to execute the agreement on behalf of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas, or to approve and make necessary changes to the same and to take any and all necessary action as may be required to fully, completely implement the provision of said agreement. Passed and approved by the City Council for the City of Holiday Island this 15th day of February 2022.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt or to accept resolution number 2022-003?
I'll move we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Linda made the motion to approve the resolution, Jerry seconded. Discussion. There is one caveat to this. First of all, I would like to say that this whole process worked out very smoothly. Hush. We came up with a draft interlocal agreement, and I sent it to Justin. Justin made some suggestions, and then Danny and I talked about it, and we said, well, Tim Hutchinson's gonna need to see it too. So we agreed, why don't we just let Tim Hutchinson and Justin Eichman talk directly to each other and hammer out the details and come up with something that's acceptable to all parties, which they did. And in like a day's time, we had an agreement that we didn't need to worry about whether or not the other side was gonna buy off on. So, as far as, cooperation between the district and the city, this worked fantastic. Now, there is a caveat or another, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. We sent a copy to the sheriff, to review in anticipation of going over there and having a meeting with them. He went over it with his lieutenant. And they want us to buy, us being the city and the district, one or both, to provide them with a vehicle. Because right now, they only have 2 extra squad cars, extra being, not in regular use. And they keep those for the reserve deputies to use. And so they don't have an extra vehicle to use. Now, I'm gonna extract some words out of Ken's mouth. The sheriff never brought that up before, but he may not have asked the question before either. At any rate, that's where they're at today. Danny and I are going to meet with the sheriff. Danny Presley, I'm talking about, has to go over there and sign some papers and do some things that are the final box to check on him being a reserve deputy for Carroll County. He's been in law enforcement his whole life. Most of his career was in law enforcement, so he's an excellent resource. Whenever
he doesn't live in Carroll County though, does he? Doesn't he live in Benton County?
Yeah, but apparently that doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
I don't know that you have to live in the county that you work in. But at any rate, we're gonna go over there and sit down and talk to the sheriff again. If we have to provide a vehicle, they can get a vehicle off of the state, through the state for about, I think they said $32,000, but then it takes another $8,000 to $10,000 to paint that vehicle as a sheriff's vehicle and to equip it, put the gun racks in and everything they do to make it a cop car. So we're talking about, probably $20,000 to $22,000 extra expense for the city and the district. I don't believe, or I'm not aware of any way that we could lease a vehicle and spread that cost out. But that's something we can explore. The county does not lease vehicles, they buy them outright. So they're not willing to lease a vehicle and just roll the cost into our monthly charge.
What about buying a used 2-year-old vehicle?
I guess there's all kinds of possibilities, so we'll have to see.
Who would the car belong to?
That's another question that Danny and I talked to
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
I'd hate to have to buy that car every year.
We're not gonna
No,
buy that car.
No, with the miles that we would put on, a stipulation would be that the car would stay here in Holiday Island. It would only be used for patrolling in Holiday Island. And with the mileage that they would put on in a year's time, we figure the car would be good for at least 6 or more years.
Who pays for the gas?
The county pays for the gas, the county pays the insurance.
One of the other things I thought was included in, that Justin was supposed to send this proposed agreement to Tony Rogers to get it reviewed before it went to the.
Well, we sent it to the sheriff, so if the sheriff thinks that Tony Rogers needs to see it, that would be up to him. The sheriff's is the name on the agreement.
Well, the county judge name's on there also, so.
I'm sure that they'll all get a chance to see it. I think the quorum court would have to approve it before the judge can even, even sign it.
Do we know if they're gonna get, if we approve it, when's HISA supposed to approve it? We know, when do they meet?
End of the month,
Yeah,
The last week of this month.
They,
yeah.
See,
The
this,
third and the
they've
fourth.
already approved the one they got, so.
Paragraph 4 says, "The purpose of performing said functions, the county shall furnish and supply all necessary labor, supervision, vehicles, equipment, communications, and dispatching facilities." The
Well-
last sentence, "Said vehicles and equipment shall remain the sole property of the county."
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about us buying a vehicle.
Well, that's because
Because
they
this-
just come up
This
with
came
it.
up after the contract was drafted.
It's the
Because they never-
negotiation.
All right.
The sheriff said that they wouldn't need that.
Yeah.
see, that's why we should have gotten this done before the county did their budget. 'Cause,
I'm pretty sure the county would, if you remember, when, way back in our budgeting process, I had baked into our cost buying vehicles, because I was pretty sure that the county wasn't going to buy another vehicle for us, now that we get all the sales tax money and the property tax money and everything else.
We ain't got it
They're
yet.
not gonna be as generous anymore as what they may have been in the past.
I was going to comment for what we have budgeted in the sheriff's contract, and what the contract is providing and paying, and considering that we're already more than halfway through February with nothing done yet, there's probably enough money in the budget to buy the car and to pay the sheriff the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we be better off paying a little more to the county and letting them buy their own car? I mean, that seems a little messy to me, for us to buy a car that they're going to insure and they're going to maintain. It seems a little weird, and I'm not sure insuring something that you don't own is.
No, I don't think there's any scenario where we would end up owning part of a car. I think we would buy it, our half, and donate it to the county.
Or just add it to the contract, the cost, I mean.
They're not willing, at this point, the county is not willing to do it on time payment. They want us to buy the car outright up front, because they don't have it in their budget to go out and buy a car and then get paid for it over the next 5 years in a monthly installment.
Well, they could possibly add a one-time cost into the contract too.
That's a possibility.
I think that just sounds cleaner to.
I'm sure that's the only way
To
to
make
do
a
it.
payment to them of
Somebody
$20,000.
X dollars.
They buy the car, because that gets us out of the hole.
And then there's something in here where the sheriff agrees to the best of his ability to leave those 2 deputies sole duties here unless some emergency or whatever.
Wait, let me ask one other
Yeah, I
question.
think I read that.
You only got,
And here's something more.
both of them
I'm
are gonna
pretty
be
sure I
on
read
duty at the
that.
same time, why do they need 2 cars?
Well, that's a good point, but my point was, is that we're saying that they need to leave the car here. And so if they need, some major
Well,
incident or something somewhere else in the county,
that ain't gonna work.
I
Lynn
don't
says
think
it's
so.
paragraph 2,
I ain't gonna buy no car.
paragraph 2.
paragraph, okay.
Well,
There, I think an argument could be made that we wouldn't want both officers patrolling at the same time, so they don't need 2 cars.
Right.
But one of the big advantages to having 2 officers is so that the officer on duty has backup. And, I guess we could expect the backup deputy to use their own vehicle, but that wouldn't be normal procedure.
Wouldn't be equipped.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even though we've got this agreement to provide 2 deputies, I mean, if we had a major incident, he would send other deputies over here, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that other deputy may be,
Paragraph
70 miles away on the other side of the county.
Okay.
That's been the problem here all along, is
Yeah.
that,
The speed
that if Aaron's not on duty and you have a problem and you call 911, they'll send another deputy, but it may take an hour for him to get here. And if there's somebody, if there's a crazy person knocking on your window, you probably don't wanna wait an hour for the deputy to get here.
That's when the Winchester comes in.
That's why we should have reserve deputies other than Danny Presley, who lives in Bentonville, and at night that's where he sleeps. Why don't we have some people sign up for reserve deputies out here?
We did have it one
We
time.
used to, I mean, Bob Clay was, and he lived here.
And so was Jack Deaton.
Yeah, he was.
Those are all possibilities.
But we've gotta tell people that there's an opportunity for them to,
Well, maybe that's
You
something
know, be a
Dan
reserve
and Danny
deputy.
Danny can
Iron
discuss
out.
with the sheriff.
However,
we need people to sign up to
It
volunteer
takes-
though.
It takes more than just saying, I wanna be a deputy, give me a gun.
Oh, I know,
Yeah, I
they
mean,
have to be trained,
They have to be trained and
Do some
certified, and they have to be sworn officers,
Yeah.
and,
they have to be into it.
yeah.
well, they have changed the rules. or
Well,
the-
do we want to table the resolution until I get more detail
Well,
on what
I-
might be a workable option on a vehicle?
I think so, because
Yeah.
I don't see how we can authorize you to make those kind of things without us having oversight. I don't-
Especially if it's gonna affect finances.
Okay,
I mean, if you're talking $35,000 or $40,000, you're talking about, I'm not willing to buy them a car and give it to them if we're not gonna have this contract for 5 years. I don't see us having a contract for 5
That is a
years.
valid point
yeah.
he's making, yeah.
Does our 22 budget have a vehicle?
You know, if we gotta buy them a vehicle, I'd just soon get our own police department, the hell with them.
21
I
did.
think it was built into the amount that's budgeted.
Okay.
At one time, when we first did the contract we were paying for the deputy and the car expenses, and it was just a flat
We're
rate.
talking about High Sid's contract a few years ago.
Yeah. It was more than just the personnel cost. There was
Well,
cost.
it was a monthly rate,
Yeah.
And there's,
how they.
I can't,
a lot of things have changed since then, a lot of things.
well,
And I'm totally sympathetic to the problem that the county is in, because their revenue streams are limited just like the city. They're maxed out on millage, on property tax millage. They can't get a sales tax increase passed because the people won't vote for it.
They haven't
Um,
tried,
Huh?
they have not tried.
Well,
Tell
I'm
me
told
when
that
they tried.
have.
You name 1 year since I've lived here that
Well-
they've tried it.
Well, I
I've
don't
lived
know.
here 18 years.
I don't know.
well, the only one they tried was when we.
I'm being told, I was told that they tried in the past in Berryville, made sure it didn't pass.
They have raised our personal property taxes.
We-
By
It's
It's
very
only
much got enough
27%.
votes to kill it.
The only county property
Well,
tax
that
was
would
when we
be
voted
good
for the
evaluation because
new jail, and that passed.
Got recalculated higher.
Well, costs are going up, revenue streams are kind of capped unless they can float a resolution or whatever to increase the sales tax. So, I mean, we can sit here and talk about it until we're blue in the face, but we can't make the county spend money on us. So, so I made a note here, vehicle, check, look at using, at getting a used vehicle instead of a new one. Vehicle life versus contract life. I guess who would own the car, but I think I know the answer to that.
You're also gonna have a new sheriff next year, at the end of the year.
Yeah. I don't know if that's
They might live out here too.
good or bad.
Those changes then would probably in your section 4.
What is that?
Section 4 is what deals with that vehicle. For your notes that you're making.
Section.
Two of those candidates do
Yeah.
that. Two of the sheriff's candidates do that.
Yeah. Well, that's probably not gonna make any difference, you still gotta go through 4 and 4.
Yeah, it is.
Paragraph 4.
And I think a county judge candidate or two lives out here too.
Good.
Yeah.
The last time we had, the roads got fixed out here was when the county judge lived here. They don't
Okay.
know.
I will entertain a motion to table this, resolution.
Make a motion, we table resolution
Pending more information.
2022-03.
I'll
Ken-
second.
Ken made a motion to table, Linda seconded it. I think we can just do a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll table this until we have more information.
That's significant change.
Okay. Then, process of doing all this, I lost the agenda.
Public comment.
Bring the
So,
same.
right on the back of it. All right, that moves us on to public comments. Any public comments? You got 3 minutes. Come on, somebody's got 3 minutes.
Sit here all night, you don't have anything to say.
All right, well, thank you for coming and listening. Next, scheduling.
What?
Oh,
Commissioner,
council member comments.
I have one, and it came up as a result of you talking about the county sales tax rate. And I just want to put it on the record. Carroll County is one of, I think, 2, maybe 3 counties that have the absolute lowest sales tax rate in the state.
Yeah.
Out of 90-some counties, we have
Half
a
percent
half a percent, 0.5%
and
sales tax.
increasing it to
for Carroll County.
1% would
Most
solve a lot of
counties-
problems for the county, and it would double our income from
Most
sales
counties
tax.
in the state have a sales tax rate of over 2%. And we're stuck with 0.5.
Yeah,
I think it's disgraceful.
yep.
And they don't, and no one even tries to pass it. Because
They
they
haven't.
oh, it won't work.
They haven't tried.
I wonder what the process is. Can that be a
An issue.
Be a
citizen initiative?
a
Well,
referendum from citizens can get it on the ballot.
Maybe we need to
Because
get one
that's-
started.
Or the
That's how
quorum
those
court
issues
could
get on the
propose
ballot,
it,
actually.
right?
Yeah. Yes, the quorum court sets it, but we can make it go to a ballot and force them to face the issue and put it on the county's levy.
And that is, I mean, this is largely responsible for us having such lousy sheriff responses all across the county. We have a 600 square mile county, and we have about, what, 7 officers on duty at any one point in time?
Oh,
Don't
I
have
doubt
that
whether-
No,
I think we have
it's
7
3.
officers total,
Yeah, I think it's 3.
I was thinking 2
because some of
at the time.
the
Well,
deputies,
you're right,
aren't
because
patrolled.
I'm probably counting the lieutenants who don't
They
do
don't go out.
regular patrol.
Yeah, they got all kinds
and
of
then you
people.
have, all the people that work at the jail that don't patrol.
Right, exactly.
So there's
I
very few patrolling officers.
I think a case could be made, I really do. And I
Well,
think all of
public-
Holiday Island would vote for it, so. I
The
don't know
public
about
safety
this.
tax generally had fared well with voters.
What?
A public safety tax dedicated
I
to
don't
public
know,
safety.
I was here when we voted that in, that half cent one to build the new jail. Before that, they didn't have anything.
Probably the first opportunity to get it done would be in the 2024 election.
Also, the federal government is giving away grants to cities, or maybe even counties, I don't know, to add more officers, because they were underfunded in some fashion or another.
Which,
That might be another avenue.
I guess this is all under the general category of commissioner comments.
Yeah, I'm done. That's all I wanted to say.
But, you know, there was it made the news last week, KY3 News, that Carroll County is one of the few counties, I guess anywhere, that requires that their deputies purchase their own weapons. And I guess they were hiring a new deputy, and the deputy asked the quorum court to buy the weapon for him, and the quorum court turned them down because they didn't have it budgeted. And that person then went to the press with the issue, and the next day KY3 was down here with the filming crew while all the deputies were qualifying out at the range in Elk Ranch. And it was actually a pretty positive news coverage, because the county had already been discussing changing their policy, because right now they have to, every officer, buys their own gun, so they may have, 7 or 8 different kinds of ammunition that they have to stock. And so that would be a savings for the county. And then, but it was interesting that in all of this discussion, on the news and everything else, nobody ever mentioned that, grant money to equip, the police, and that, there's got to be literally billions of dollars floating out there now with all of these COVID spending bills and everything, that they could come up with $25,000 grant to buy weapons for the deputies, you would think. So,
Or for a fledgling city to buy a car.
could be.
Mr. Mayor?
I'll add it to the list.
We tonight passed the first reading of ordinance 05 about the Title 14 zoning. And I think somehow we need to encourage the public to go through that document, to take a look at the zoning map so that they can see what we're trying to do to make certain that we're trying to preserve the way we have Holiday Island City. That, especially if they see errors in the mapping that they think are critical, so that we can be brought to our attention. How do we do that?
I don't know how to do that, other than the fact that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because HICID's gonna be doing the envelope stuffing this weekend for the assessments, and they agreed that we can put a note in with the envelopes. I have to draft that note yet, and I'm going to do that, and I intended to point out to all the property owners that we have zoning ordinances, we have building codes, we're going to be passing health and sanitation ordinances, so, get ready, it's coming, we're going to start enforcing some rules.
So should we be making a change to the website to say these are in the first reading, second reading, so people know what's active?
I think you're right.
So it's easier for them to find it.
Yeah,
Sure.
it'd be pretty hard to find a meeting document.
Right,
I agree.
okay. So somehow you can
Kind
create
of like we did for the building code, we had created a page, stuck it out there,
Well, you have a page for ordinances, maybe put the one that's pending in that
Pending.
same pull down.
yeah, like, yeah. in
They're
that
pending
same
for
pull down,
approval,
you're right.
because and we put ones out there that have passed at least the first reading, nothing else.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, maybe a little bit disappointed. It makes life easy for us if we don't get 50 people wanting to write the ordinance for us. But I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't had more public interest in some of the stuff we're doing. And it's not like we're trying to keep it a secret.
But it's not just limited to, well, what code did we assign? Did we assign it an R1 or an R2 or an R3 or a C2 or whatever? It's not just that, it's what you can do with your property, it's the uses. That's where the real meat comes in.
Yeah. I agree.
Accessory buildings and uses.
I would like at least some acknowledgement from the public that they're paying attention. more than just 3 people.
And we have.
Thank you for being,
You're welcome, we're paying attention.
I've already got the computer now, but is the broadband survey still across the top?
It is.
Won't we put something there directing, you know?
To a different
right
page
at the very
or-
top to a different page with all.
Are we ready to take that off and put a different message?
Yeah,
Like a banner message, you know?
Yeah, I think this would be worth doing that.
Okay. I'll take the broadband down then and we'll put something about the pending stuff on that message, if that's okay. And then lead them to another page and maybe also include it under the government.
I didn't intend for you to do more work, but we've got to get it out there.
It's okay.
if you can crack the code on how to communicate with the public anymore, I think you could
Well,
make a
there's-
fortune.
There's lots of
consulting.
social media and it's fired up on politics, but somehow we got to get fired up on paying attention to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Tell you
But
what, the thing about.
we are limited, I think, as a city to use
Social media, you know, my experience with social media is it's very group driven.
Mhm.
You know, this little group is very active in this social media pod. This group is very active in this pod, but.
That's why
you
they
know,
call them groups.
Yeah, but nobody goes out looking for what's going on in the city, you know, and stuff like that, you know. You know, in the old days, everybody got the newspaper and everybody read the newspaper. I'm talking, you know, probably 25 years ago, but, you know, that's how you communicated. That's why most laws still say that you have to publish your notifications in a newspaper, as if anybody still reads a newspaper.
Well,
But,
we don't have one, so.
Yeah, so
Well,
I don't know how to get the word out to.
Our advice should be, rather than complain after it's implemented, contribute while you still have a chance.
Now you're gonna have.
Keep good records of all, like Lynn did, how many hours we have been working in public view, putting together some of this stuff. And then when people say that they didn't know anything about it, say, where were you?
And I happen to notice that Lynn's map, which is the thing that is mandatory, you have to have it. The latest version is version 52.
Yes.
If that tells you anything
It's-
about the work that went in on it.
Well, yeah.
It tells me that Lynn can't get anything right the first time.
I don't know when Lynn sleeps.
Says the man that lost the agenda 7 times.
Here's the laptop with the software. When you wiggle it too
That was-
fast, it disappears, and you go, where the heck did it go? So you back
That
it
was,
up.
And I noticed.
that was intended to be light humor.
I get it.
And I noticed he sent something out this week at 3 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he
Because
sleeps
it had to
less
get
than I
done.
do.
It had to get done.
Okay, any other comments? Meeting schedules? Or right now, the only meeting would be our next regular meeting.
And that would be March something.
It's the first, the
So
second
if you-
would be the 15th, right?
Thursday the 15th.
15th March.
Yes.
6
Okay.
p.m.
6 p.m.
So
If we need a special meeting to cover anything, I'll call it.
And I'll be gone.
Any
till the
announcements?
4th.
Yeah, and Wes is gonna be gone, so if you need a check or anything,
When are you going? When are you going?
Friday.
This Friday? For a week or 2 weeks?
how many fingers was up?
Which fingers were up?
Yeah.
I don't want to announce it to the.
No, I get it, yeah.
Well, you just did. We'll have Aaron.
Oh, most exciting birthday I've ever had.
All right, any announcements other than the one Wes just made? I think there's a 13 on the agenda, but it must be on a page I didn't print. What's 13 on the agenda ordinarily?
Probably
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jerry made a motion to
Second.
adjourn. Linda seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?